Welcome to another episode of the Career Talks podcast, folks. I am your host, Orlando Haynes. Each and every week, I try to bring you the best of the best when it comes to career development, really to impact your life and provide actionable advice for your career and life. And today, again, is none other. If you don't know who I have today, you're living under a rock. So we're gonna get that. We're gonna bring her on the stage really quickly. But today's episode is sponsored by the Career Accelerator Planner. It is a planner designed for you, the corporate professional, for you to track and document your wins so you're better prepared in your next career transition, whether that's a promotion or salary negotiations or career transition to a new organization. Don't expect your managers to really know all the worth you bring to the table. You have to document your wins. This way, it'll help you support in your career growth. So, I'm going to leave a QR code on the screen. You can always just scan that QR code, download a copy, and get yourself the Career Accelerator Planner. So, I have none other than Miss Virginia Franco, who is a executive storyteller. Love that title. She's a certified resume writer. She's also the host of her own podcast called Resume Storyteller and the CEO and founder of Virginia Franco Resume. Let's bring this young lady on. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. You had just stepped on. Let me share with folks quickly how fast Virginia was available and so gracious to join me today. Literally, we probably chatted Tuesday or Wednesday. You were like, "Yep, Friday
hmm
works. Yep, 12 o'clock works. Let's do it." So I appreciate you because I know you have a huge following and you've been running your business for years. But share with folks more about who you are, what you do, and your specialty.
Sure. So I say this all the time. I have been writing resumes since the dawn of day. When I got out of school a long time ago, I wrote resumes for people for free. My degree's in journalism. I didn't know anyone did it for a living until many years later. I was at a career crossroads, like so many people are these days, and needed to figure out a way to uh, make a living without dying in childcare. And that's when I discovered that resume writing was actually an official profession. And I jumped in and I've been at it since 2008.
Wow. Yeah. So about 15 years or so
Mm-hmm.
officially running the business, but probably you
That's
said
right.
resumes prior
Unofficially
to.
for longer. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's always the
Yep.
case, right?
That's
We
right.
have
That's
we
right.
have the thought in our head for so long to launch a business, but then it officially it happens for us. So, um, you've touched a lot of folks. You specialize. Well, I want to say specialize because I don't want to put you in the box. You do a lot of executive resume writing
Mm-hmm.
for
I
those
do.
folks. So let me first ask you this because I think this is a crucial topic. What are you seeing amongst executives in this current climate that some of us don't see? Where is there a lot of movement, shift, or worry for them in this current career economy?
So, I mean, the headlines are pretty telling, and the big tech companies are struggling, and it's starting to ripple to other industries that touch on tech. So people, what I'm seeing a lot of in the executive space of people that, um, to be on the safe side, they are getting their documents ready to go just in
Mhm.
case something happens. But I just saw an article talking about what's going on in the tech industry that gave me some hope. They said it is a little worse in tech than it was in 2008, but not as bad as the tech bust and in 2001. And that's because there's still a lot of venture capital money. There's a lot of they're just sort of holding off on the investments. The good thing is that there is growth in certain sectors still. People are still hiring. It's just not the pandemonium that we were experiencing, you know, 2 minutes ago when we had the Great
Mhm.
Recession. So I feel like the last couple of years have just been career whiplash for a lot of people.
Mm.
So I guess the other thing that I would say is that people are tired. There's between the from the pandemic to the recession to now this, it's a lot to take.
Yeah, because it's all happening in succinct, right, or in parallel, should I
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
to it all. So it's you're thinking you're dodging one, but the next one hits you. You're trying to dodge two, and then
that's
the
right.
third one hits you.
Yeah, lots of curveballs. So.
Got it. So today's topic, we're talking about key steps to figuring out your best career move. Um, let's start walking through what are some strategies that you're sharing with your client base that you see yielding some results in today's market.
So while I don't specialize in helping people sort of figure out their next best move, they come to me once they are clear on their target.
Okay.
But in that, but having gone through this myself, having worked with a lot of people that had to go through these exercises, I've definitely identified some sort of really important things to figure out when you need to make a move. Um, the first thing is to determine, how quickly do I need to land, right? If you need a job tomorrow, then making a big 180 shift might be a little bit too much. Those sorts of things take time. If and so your quickest way to land is probably staying in more of your lane, either in the same role or in the same industry or something like that. That's sort of the quickest. Sort of the second quickest is to do a micro shift where maybe you stay in the same role in a new industry or stay in a new industry but a slightly different
Mm,
role. That takes a little bit longer, but not as long as doing a completely different role, different industry, all of that, because it takes time to uh, speak with people and get your story across and get have those discussions and get someone to convince them that you are worth the risk. But when people are trying to figure out, what should I do next, what I tell people is sort of identify, do a skills dump. You need to figure out, because what you want to do is figure out what it is that you're good at that you also like to do that will meet your deal breakers.
mm,
There's so many of us, right, that are really good at a handful of things, which is great. But some of them you like a little bit more than others. And then still other ones, you're probably not going to be able to I don't know, make a living with it or whatever your deal breakers are. And so I can use myself as an example. In 2008, when I needed to make a pivot, I knew I was a good writer. I knew I was good at interviewing people. I'd done that in my roles as a social worker and a journalist and in corporate communications. But I needed my role to be fully remote. And this was, in 2008 when that wasn't as much of a thing. So my deal breaker was it has to be remote. So that sort of ruled out lots of roles for me. And I also knew that I was pretty good at project management, but I don't love that. So honing in on what it is that I like to do that I was also good at that would meet my criteria of being able to be virtual is how I fell on resume writing as a career. So sort of that crossroads of all three of those. And
got
so
it.
that skills dump and assessment is I think a really critical first piece.
Do you think that's kind of first step for folks, or just the clarity piece, really diving in to really know what they want to do? Because you said two things. The 2 points you made are very crucial, right? How fast, right? And that really goes back pulling back some layers, saying, hey, financially,
Mm-hmm.
can I take some time to think about what's my next move? Or hey, I need to move because I need the income, so I'm just going to jump right back into the same function, same industry, same role, which is you referenced on your previous podcast,
Mm-hmm.
Don Graham's book, right, Switchers, which speaks
Mm-hmm.
to that.
Yeah,
So phenomenal.
love her. Mm-hmm.
um, but do you think the skill dump is the first step for them, or clarity piece, when folks are coming to you?
If they are not absolutely clear that I really like what I do, I can't do it with this company anymore, or I
Mm,
got laid off, then that exercise might not need to happen. But what I tell people is if you do need to land right away, that doesn't mean you can't still do the skill dump and do that exercise, because you might take a role quickly and on the side be sort of exploring a new career path, recognizing that it takes time so that you're still paying the bills the way and doing what you need to do to take care of yourself and your family, while also identifying a potential future career path and then maybe engaging in a job hunt at the same time. So
got it.
recognizing that this role you take is a stopgap.
So I want to stay on your client base of the executives, because
Hmm.
we talked to a lot of folks who are, mid-level, junior level, and we see
Hmm.
the conversations really hit around the masses in that space. But you touched on it earlier. You're starting to see they're starting to prepare their paperwork to make a shift. Um, is there a greater fear, or is there a fear at that C-level suite because jobs are maybe not as plentiful for them at that level? Does it get tighter at the C-levels?
Yeah, just at the executive C-suites. I mean,
Hmm.
they should never have called it a career ladder. It's a career pyramid. There are definitely less roles at the top right than at the bottom. Um, I don't feel like the fear or the anxiety level is any more or less. There's different things on the line. Executives sometimes have more of a nest egg than other people, but they
Hmm.
also might have more expenses. They're depending on where they're with their families and their lifestyles. So the emotions are the same. The strategies that you need to go about landing are the same. You need to be clear on your target. You need to have strong marketing collateral. You need to have a strategy to connect with others. That doesn't change no matter what level you are. So I think that's that's common across all levels.
From a tactical standpoint,
Hmm.
does it get does the change happen there? Because again, most executives may have a stronger network, right, than someone junior in their role. Obviously, they're more senior tenured and
They
work
know
their
more
way up.
people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So from a tactical standpoint, they can leverage maybe one strategy over the other.
Well, that's right. There are people that are nervous about tapping into their network, not
Yeah.
recognizing that that's a strength that they have. Um, they're not as savvy with social media in the way some of the younger people are. So, sort of
Hmm.
accessing that is a skill set that they need to learn. But yeah, by virtue of having lived longer, in theory, they know more people. They have more experiences, which lends itself to being able to maybe pivot into a new industry or a new role because they have done lots of other things. So there's pros and cons that
Do
they're
you
dealing with.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Do you share with those senior leaders, like you said, that do not maybe dive into leveraging the LinkedIn platform at all to their advantage? Is there conversations that you'll have with them to saying, "Hey, at this level, you should start to maybe brand yourself a little more so they understand your thought leadership depth and worth at that point."
So to me, it's all about helping LinkedIn work for you. LinkedIn is
Hmm.
the best. It's a CRM and a social media site all rolled into one. And so when and the way these social media platforms work, I've used this analogy before, but they're sort of like a needy boyfriend or girlfriend, and that you need to be paid attention to it and doing and being on there. So when you have a complete profile, when you're connecting with others, when you are responding to messages, when you are commenting on posts, when you are posting your own things, the algorithm likes that, and it those are all those parts are what comprises the algorithm, and it helps you to show up more in search. It helps you to show up more in people's feeds, and when you are having conversations with people about roles, or your name gets passed around, you're passing around their resume, they're going to Google you. LinkedIn is the first thing they're going to see. So it stands the reason that you should have a profile up there that shows that you could do what you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
So what you're doing is you're using LinkedIn to be found, and to find others, and then to provide social proof that you can do what you say you do.
Awesome. So when you say social proof, is it just a matter
Mhm.
of, having their accolades there or having more engagement on the platform? How do you view that?
Engagement to me is a way to get the algorithm. It's one of the components of the algorithm that when it sees that you are active, it helps you to show up higher in search.
Hmm.
Um, it's but it is also a way to establish thought leadership. But I recognize that not everyone is always ready to go out there and write posts and write articles and things like that. So I say, rather than doing that, maybe get started by finding people that are active in that space, that are established thought leaders, and start by commenting on their posts.
Hmm.
Add your opinions, maybe your thoughts on the issues at hand that it in a way that hasn't been discussed previously. And just by lending your voice, you will start the algorithm will recognize it, and you will, it's one of the pieces that will help you to show up more in search,
Got it.
together with a full profile and all those other components.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And
Okay.
I share that myself, just for job seekers to create content to get more eyeballs, right? Establish personal branding, thought leadership, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. But it's good to hear that even at that level, you're saying, hey, you should dip your toe into at least the fundamental basics of commenting to heighten your profile for views. So that's good.
That's right. What I love about commenting is it's a good way to sort of find your voice online as well,
Mm,
and give you confidence to start doing posts. But I listened to your podcast with Sarah Johnson the other day, and what she said resonated with me. You don't When you are looking to work for a company, maybe you aren't posting every single day. Um, it could just be once a week, twice a week, something like that.
absolutely. Absolutely. So frequency matters, content matters, value matters.
Hmm.
There's definitely a strategy versus just blanketly going out there and thinking, all right, I'm gonna be everywhere. I'm gonna be omnipresent, and it's gonna find me the job. There can be some, some backlash to that. Thinking, to Sarah Johnson's point, that you're trying to be more, I guess, entrepreneurial in essence versus
Hmm.
partnering yourself with a company. So love it, love it.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
But LinkedIn is such a great tool for search,
hmm
to target people, target companies, get intel. So use it if nothing else for just for that. LinkedIn is happy that you're using it for those purposes as well. So
Exactly, and the fact that it's global, you can reach someone anywhere in a matter of seconds is
that's
amazing.
right.
So when it comes to the common theme you're seeing from whether it's their concerns, because I want to have a deeper understanding of coaches like yourself who handle, the executive talent pool. Is there a common theme that you're getting from them that may be positive? They're more optimistic or less optimistic again, because it's like you said, it's a pyramid. It's less opportunities at the top.
I mean, it so depends on the industry.
Mm,
The like in during the recession, tech was booming, or not the recession, during the pandemic, tech was booming, hospitality and corporate real estate was dying. Now it's another sector. So the pain points are definitely, I'm definitely seeing more tech executives that were in hyper growth mode, and now they're like, oh, I have to now work to batten down the hatches. I need to make sure everything's ready to go in case I get cut like everybody else. Um, Other industries are doing a little bit better. So
got it.
hospitality is doing great.
Is it? It's coming back. Really?
It is coming back. So
Oh
that's what
wow.
I've seen. Yeah,
Okay. And me being in Florida, so that's interesting. Yeah, I gotta dive in deeper on that side because we're heavy in hospitality in the
that's
Orlando
right. No,
market.
you have the mouse.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, from a standpoint of tips, again, that'll help with your career. Uh, what are some unique things that you're hearing or conversations that were the masses should be aware of that you're coming across?
So because I focus so heavily on the career marketing collateral, or the resume or the LinkedIn, I'm seeing a lot of people that have not needed to job hunt in a long time, and
Mm,
so they're very rusty. They don't know, um, the resume they wrote was 10 years old. LinkedIn was just a job search platform back then. They didn't realize that it's really so much. It's such a more robust tool, and so what I focus on is just explaining to people how your resume needs to look now. What are the components of LinkedIn that you need to have? Um, have those documents shored up so that you are accurately and compellingly telling your story. Um, in terms of what has changed, as I said, 10 years ago, LinkedIn was much more of just a job search tool. When
hmm.
you were looking for a job, 15 years ago, I could literally cut and paste someone's resume more or less to LinkedIn, and they were cutting edge and had an advantage because there weren't as many people on there. That's certainly not the case now. With the resume, people were reading these in print. or they were opening them up on their desktop, but they certainly they weren't reading resumes on their phones. All of that has evolved dramatically. Thank goodness people are not using their Apple Watch to read resumes, because that would be tough. But you have to take into account that these platforms are being digested and these documents are being digested on very small screens, and we read really differently. I think LinkedIn over half of all users are reading on mobile,
Wow.
and it is a lot harder to read something on a teeny screen than it is a big screen, and it's even harder to read. Print is the easiest to read, and then big screen, and then little tiny screens. So you have to make sure that whatever you write about yourself is not littered with dense text. You can't have 10 bullets. You can't have bullets smushed together. All of that is very, very tough on the eye. And when someone's in a rush and something's tough to read, you run the risk that they're going to skip it. And everyone's always in a rush when they're reading our resumes, reading our LinkedIn profiles. You need to recognize that people jump around when they're reading online. Unlike, print, you're taught to open a book and you read, top to bottom, left to right. Screens, we are all over the place, and everyone is different. And so you need to keep in mind that when you are writing a sentence, you need to put the good stuff at the beginning, because there's a chance the reader won't get to the end because they've jumped on to something else. I'll use some minor design elements when I'm writing, just the use of shading and bold and things like that to draw the reader where I want them to go, recognizing that they're not going to be there very long. So those are sort of things that I keep in mind when I'm writing LinkedIn profiles and when I'm writing resumes that you didn't need to think about 10, 15 years ago.
So great points that you brought up. Two, one is obviously you said earlier, 10 years ago, you can copy and paste the resume on LinkedIn. But now telling your story, how do we transition that resume to LinkedIn where it's not a copy and paste and the storytelling in both, but how do we do that on
Different,
LinkedIn specifically?
So same themes, but it is not a cut and paste. The tone of LinkedIn is very different. Resumes are more formal in nature. You write in a sort of a more staccato way. LinkedIn is again, it's conversational. You talk about yourself in the first person. What you want to have happen when someone finishes looking at your profile is that they feel like they maybe had a quick conversation with you. LinkedIn is very keyword driven. And so I will use tools like LinkedIn's resume builder to identify the keywords that are important for the role I'm targeting. And I make sure to put them in the headline, in the skill section at the bottom, and then I'll work to expand them in the job titles. In terms of the level of detail that you include on the LinkedIn, there's some things that you can't always include. Like if you're working for a company and you're still employed, you can't share about what a hot mess things are, right? Or the things that you fixed.
Right.
But you would say that on the resume. So you need to think of how to explain what you're doing in a way that positions you as a really strong corporate steward or corporate ambassador. What else? If you're a private company, you might not be able to share revenue figures. Consulting companies can't always share names of clients. So those are things you really need to consider with a public-facing platform like LinkedIn that you don't always have to consider for the resume.
And that's really interesting, Virginia, because it's typically the same reader for both, but we have to have a different forward-facing context on two
That's
different
right,
platforms.
because LinkedIn, there's additional readers. You might work with vendors, you might be a hiring manager, you might be looking to sell, you might be in sales and looking to sell your company, and so you need to think of those eyes as well.
So is it that we're on the resume, we're speaking to one audience, and correct me if I'm wrong,
That's right. That's a
LinkedIn,
really good way to put it.
got it. LinkedIn, we're various audiences that's going to view the profile.
That's right. And what I love about LinkedIn is that you can be on it whether you're job hunting or not, because hiring managers and recruiters are not looking for the best job seeker. They're looking for the best candidate. And we hear about people getting poached all the time. And so you want a profile that positions your company well, positions you well, to do well in your job, and then to be able to be considered for other opportunities.
So when it comes to resumes, I think a lot of folks still, and as a recruiter myself, we still get the unformatted, the not the polished resume look.
Hmm. Yeah.
What's the new trend, or is there a new trend in format that's more accepted today's with ATS and such?
So I'm in the camp that I try to remember that there's a human being at the other end of ATS that does look at resumes.
Hmm.
It's not all about, I don't subscribe to the people that talk about beating the bots. You need a document that's designed first and foremost by human beings, but that when submitted online, that the ATS can read the information properly. That's sort of what it's all about. In terms of trends, it's not a brand new trend, but it's something that I don't think got enough focus in recent years. Is you want to focus on accomplishments and results, not responsibilities, and that is something that um, is important across all levels, but certainly at the executive levels, because you want to show that you understand the why behind everything that you did. Tie it
Got it.
back to the corporate strategy and the corporate mandate or the company mandate. And the good thing is that when you show a result, you're weaving in the responsibilities, but you're making the bullet more memorable and
Mm,
making the reader say, well, that's what I need. And
I like that.
by focusing on these are the 5 things that I am proudest of, or this is where I made an impact, then what you do is you maybe only have 5 or 6 bullets. You don't have 20,
Hmm.
which is usually the case when people list all of their responsibilities.
So what immediately popped in my head when you said that is by having just more of the quantifiable data on there, once you get the interview, you can speak to the how to of execution and how you did that.
That's right. That's right. You want to show, yeah, you want to show the what did your efforts result in? That's sort of what the goal of the bullet is.
Love it. From from a different additional strategies, let me say that additional strategies um, when it comes to say the hidden job market. What is your viewpoint, perspective on that when it
Hmm.
comes to that and navigating those
Yeah.
waters?
So the well, I to me a diversified job strategy is the most impactful. I don't recommend making applying online as your first point of entry the only way that you are
Mm,
job searching. It is um, the return on your investment. I've seen it over and over again. It just doesn't yield as much of an ROI as a strategy of identifying the role you want to do, some companies where you would like to do it, and then you sort of reverse engineer and figure out, well, who do I know? Who do I need to know? Those conversations, I've seen people leapfrog to the front of the list over and over again when they're having those conversations with recruiters, with hiring managers, and when their documents spell out exactly how they're a really great fit for it. To use the Disney World mouse analogy, it is like a Disney World fast pass to get you in
mm.
front of the line. That doesn't mean that you're not applying to online. Usually you do have to at some point. It just means that that's not where you're focusing 90% of your time. You're diversifying and making sure that you are targeting people, targeting companies, maybe you're targeting niche job boards, and just not focusing exclusively on the Indeed.coms of the world.
So you said, which I like, obviously making it a more diverse approach. You said not
Mhm.
applying first as your first strategy. So almost like you said, targeting the individuals, the recruiters, maybe the decision makers, if possible, having the conversation first, and then saying if there's like, yeah, go ahead and apply. You do that as, yep, this is part of the
To
process. Let me.
me, that's ideal, or at the
I love it.
very least, apply and then see if you can immediately connect with the recruiter or the hiring manager to get a human connection behind that application.
Love that. Love that.
But I have interviewed so many recruiters, and I don't know if this is the key same for you, but
Hmm.
when you have a relationship with someone or someone is referred through someone that you have a relationship with, there's that just a little extra layer of confidence there that helps you to stand out from a sea of strangers. Because at the end of the day, we are more apt to gravitate towards people that we know or know about than someone we don't know a thing about.
So that's a great transition. So you speak with a lot of recruiters.
Hmm.
What do you hear as far as their opinion? What are you seeing again in this new career economy? What are they saying in terms of the talent pool?
Oh gosh, it's so dependent on the industry, right?
Still,
What tech recruiters are saying is very different than
yeah,
what finance recruiters are saying. So, and I'm an industry generalist, so I'm probably not the best one to weigh in on that.
no worries.
But they
From
all agree that you
Yeah,
need to look. A recruiter's job is to find the best match for the company
hmm
that they're hiring for. So they appreciate outreach that shows when the person says this is how I'm well aligned for this role versus can you help me find a job or let me know if you hear of anything. Those sorts of communications aren't that helpful, but when you can foster a relationship and it's clear the value you bring, they will keep you in mind for opportunities that come up because
right.
and they have you in their ATS systems, right? In the company ATS systems. So
Is there a second layer when you say skills dumps? I'm jumping back a bit because I like that. Is there a second layer to that when it comes to the skills dumps versus stuff that you're good at versus what you're passionate about, or is there a systematic approach you handle with your clients?
so the exercise to me is just a very high level skills dump but the people that but when you really want to know what specific skills are needed for a particular job,
Hmm
um, that's where I go to sites like LinkedIn's resume builder and I guess JobScan has that as well, where they can look at a job posting and say, here are all the skills that someone or keywords that someone is going to be typing in when searching for talent like you.
Mm,
Um, and so that's sort of I guess a next layer of a deep dive that isn't so much for career exploration. I use that information to write the documents, but you could use it for career exploration as well.
got it. And for those folks that you come across when it comes to a career transition, right back to what Don Graham talks about with
Hmm.
function. Not only are you changing, you may stay in the same industry, but you're changing function and the degree of
Hmm.
difficulty in that. How are you, or how are you helping those folks understand that piece there? So I'm sure you get folks that'll say, "I'm tired of HR. I want to go into project management."
Hmm. So my advice to those people is to have do online research, but have exploratory conversations with people in those roles
Hmm
so that you can understand what a day looks like there. What baseline skills do you need to have to be able to make a pivot into that? Where is the gap that you might have in your own career, and that what that allows you to do is to make a plan to close the gap. So it might be that if you wanted to pivot to project management, like you said, it might be helpful to get a PMP certification to help you to springboard. But you having those conversations with people will help you identify number one if it's a role that you really think you would like to do, because it might be like I didn't think about that part. I don't like that. Um, and what gaps do you have that might be easy to overcome, or they might not be. But at least you'll know that. But those exploratory conversations are so beneficial.
Got it. Now, with your diversified approach, like you said, in the job search,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is there one that sticks out? Is there a go-to first for you as you're talking, or depends on the industry? Obviously, tech is far different.
Yeah.
Is there a go-to that you say, "Hey, let's try here first and see what yields"?
To me, the making a list of companies you want to work at and people first string people that you know really really well, second string people that maybe um, that might be past colleagues, alumni, um, and then third string people, which are people that like second degree
Hmm
connections. That that's the most powerful to me. That's the place you can really advance your job search by starting conversations with those people.
And so which is it'll again comes to a great point in the network piece, which we touched on earlier. But keeping a warm network even when you're not looking, is that something you touch on as well in your coaching to say, hey, you don't start from zero. Here are
Yeah,
some
you don't
ways
want to
to
wait till you're thirsty to dig your well. Right,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah, it we are this. I didn't coin this, but I believe you have to be the CEO of your own career, and we
Hmm.
really should always sort of be in job search mode. If job search mode means having conversations with people, one of the reasons why I was so free to speak with you on short notice is I always leave Friday mornings open for conversations.
Awesome.
Um, and I think people should always be doing that. One conversation a week over the course of your life will just expand your network. And I don't think it's a bad idea when you are looking for a job to end every conversation with, "Can you think of maybe three people that I should be speaking with additionally?" And that number one allows you to expand your network, but number two, it allows you to go back to that original person and say, "Hey, I wanted to let you know I followed up with this person," and so it allows you to keep those conversations going.
Now, I think that's a major aha point there that folks do not do. I don't do it, but I'm absolutely going to integrate that now for sure. What are some additional things? Because I think that
I
can be
mean,
a
I'll
huge
tell you
game
that is
changer.
my
That's the
husband.
coin.
I've used him as my guinea pig several times. He's had a handful of job searches. Some he did not listen to me. Some where he did. But the by doing that, three people, he has landed so much more quickly.
Mm,
Sometimes to the point where he was given this last job search, he was given an offer, and then they said, "Oh gosh, you never applied online." Um, and then he did, and his resume was APS compliant, all of that. But it was just three names and three names and three names.
well,
But he was crystal clear on what he wanted to do and the kinds of organizations where he wanted to do it. So that helped to move those conversations along.
I think that's so crucial. And so you hear about keeping a warm network, but I think to you put more actionable advice behind it, right? As to, hey, keep one day a week to where you can just build out one or two conversations that morning to keep your network warm and open, and you just never know what will happen from that. What are some additional things that you do as an entrepreneur that job seekers, some principles that you use in your business that you think would help job seekers today
Oh gosh, that
in
is a
terms
really
of
good question. No
in terms
one
of
ever asked me that.
structure and because that the one you shared on
Yeah,
Friday that's huge.
I guess um, the
How you
this
structure your
is
day, your week.
yeah. I was gonna say, so this is something that I always did in my roles, but as an entrepreneur, it's been super helpful. But it does, I think, helps everyone. There are I will look at all the things I need to do, and I know in my head now, but initially I didn't. This will take an hour and a half. This will take 10 minutes, and so when I have a short window of time, rather than working on that thing that is an hour and a half long, I'll knock out a bunch of the low hanging fruit that takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So it's sort of managing my time in chunks, and that enabled me. I have four kids. When there were times of the day where I did not have an hour of concentration in my day, but I could knock out those little things. And so I would structure my day around my availability and knew exactly which tasks I could go to with that small window of time. I have seen this play out in job search where people say, "I only have 15 minutes in the morning. Um, Maybe I can't write a post, but I can go do two connection requests, or I can spend 5 minutes making a couple of comments." And so you're sort of maximizing the window that you have.
Got that. I mean, breaking it down into small digestible pieces. I love that.
Yeah. That
So
might
when
be
you're
like a Stephen
overwhelmed.
Covey calendar thing that I learned from way back when. I'm not even sure, but I've been doing it for a really long time.
Got it. Love it. Love it. And so now there's so many changes, right? We talked about it at the top of the call. You have the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Tech space, layoffs that are still happening throughout this year. Are you seeing any industry shifts? And again, I know it's specific to the industry, and you mentioned hospitality growing. Any other space that you're seeing job seekers shift to at all based on its growth?
So maybe I can't speak to specific industries or roles, but what I am seeing in terms of the storytelling is
Mm,
it's more it's really important now to focus on not just how you can support growth, but how you can support a company during or your customers during tougher times. So that might mean what can I do to manage costs? What can I do to do a lot with a little? Just how can you make sure that your customers are having a seamless experience when all this turmoil is happening in the company or the industry? And I'm making sure to pull out those stories and including those on the resume, which when I look back on it, I did that in 2008 because things were a mess back then. And certainly during the pandemic at the beginning, I was doing that. But then in the hyper growth periods of the economy, people don't, they don't want to know about how you can batten down the hatches. They want to know how you can, power hyper growth. And so uh, I spoke more about that. So now I'm trying to balance that conversation.
got it. Now, I wanted to jump forward to the LinkedIn platform again because we talked about the storytelling piece and how that context should be in the body. But when it comes to the storytelling on the about
Mm-hmm.
page, or the about
The bell
section of
section.
that,
Mm-hmm.
how should that be crafted for us in today's market again?
Okay. So the first two lines of the about section are the hook. They are similar to the first couple of lines in a newspaper article that makes you say, this is what the story is going to be about, and this is what I want to come back to when I have more time. I know there are people, and I've certainly seen LinkedIn profiles that do this, where it's sort of super catchy,
Hmm.
but you aren't really clear on what the person does. I don't always love those for job seekers. I like to have a couple lines that, in a compelling way, say, this is what I this is why people hire me over and over again. I build sales teams. I lead IT strategy for core infrastructure. To make sure that the infrastructure is stable and secure, whatever it is. Um, I make sure that the about section has a way to contact you. Make sure to include an email in there. It seems silly, but by having the reader have to go and find your contact information, that's one extra click, so make it easy. Um, Once the first two lines once you've hooked the reader, then they're more apt to read more. And so from there, I will also include things that what I'll include are, these are things that a company can count on me for. These
Mm,
are things that my team can count on me for. If you're a leader, I will include a section that says how I lead and explain a little bit about my leadership philosophy or the client's leadership philosophy. But then I also make sure to show what that results in. Like if you're a servant leader and you champion professional development, all those things, that sounds great, but what have been the results? Maybe it's
right.
that lots of people got promoted. Maybe it's that the company grew. Maybe it's that you're boomerang employees now. Like whatever it is, again, you're sort of showcasing the why it's so important that you're referencing it. Sometimes, especially when someone's trying to make a career change, I will include some highlights in the about section that show alignment of what on the surface might feel like roles that aren't related. I'll try to include bullets that show how your experience is transferable. So I'll maybe have a career highlight section that takes up a little bit. You have 2,500 characters to play with. I'm all about using them.
How much personal information should we share in there again
Mhm.
so the reader gets to know us as much as possible?
Yeah. So to me, I try not to add things that don't add value to the story. So
Mm,
if there's something about your earlier life that is really important now, like let's say I'm writing one today, I'm thinking about it, someone who has military experience. His military experience isn't directly related to his role, but it gave him resiliency and grit and a sense of discipline that he brings to every role. And so I did weave in something in the about section that talks about that. Or I remember a guy that had worked on a farm, or he'd grown up on a farm. He doesn't want to be a farmer, but he learned so much about life and people and all of that from that experience when he was younger that it when he told me that, I felt like that's relevant to the story, so I'm going to include it. So I guess think about what makes you you, what
Hmm.
drives you, what influences how you work, and if it's stuff from your past, then it makes sense to include it in there.
Got it. Got it. So we have a quick question based on what you were just sharing now. So kind of prompt two. The
Mhm.
issue with my passion and career history is that they don't match up. So my work history is pharmaceutical sales, but I'm passionate about aesthetics and skincare industry. Should I not talk about what I'm most passionate about because it confuses the hiring manager?
So if depends on what your target is. If you are looking to pivot into that space, into the aesthetic and skincare industry, then you can have a section in your about that says, passionate about this industry, and you can talk about how you've explored that passion. Um, but if you wanted to move into skincare sales, you can certainly draw on your pharma sales background because the commonality is you need to, get past gatekeepers, know who you need to be able to talk about a product inside and out. You need to be able to articulate the value. You need to be able to negotiate the sale. All of those things are still important. It's just it's not an industry niche, but you're introducing an industry niche that way by having a section about your interest in the skincare industry.
I think that's a perfect point. So I
Does that help?
couldn't see it, couldn't see the name. So to what Virginia said, it's easier to transition or talk about it if you're still in the same function. So if you're still in sales, yes, you can transfer a lot of that. So they said thank you. But if it's a
You're welcome.
completely different
Yeah,
function, then maybe
yeah.
what you need to do is hire Virginia. There you go.
There you go. You have to think about what the target is. If you were like, I love skincare, but I'm really open to working in cardiology, then maybe you're not going to focus on the skincare piece. Um, Depends on how much you want to lean in on that.
Yeah, but good point. You would know the verbal, right? The terminology because it's all healthcare and medical space.
Hmm. That's
Uh,
right.
so your learning curve could be quite short because you're
Yeah.
already in there. Awesome. So I want to be mindful of the time because I know you got a lot on your plate. You're in the middle of some things now. So, what are some upcoming things for you, Virginia, your business that you're looking forward to? Because we're still early in 2023.
Ah, um, honestly, I am plugging away, helping job seekers that have complex stories to tell, writing their stuff. I Once a month I get together with Kenneth Lang and Claire Davis. Claire Davis specializes in medical and
Mm,
healthcare sales. That might help that user.
love
And
Claire.
we get together on LinkedIn Audio and do lions and tigers and resumes. I just we like to open the floor because everyone has a unique situation, and sometimes one size fits all advice doesn't work, so that's a venue to be able to ask your specific questions.
You
So
said Kenneth.
that's Kenneth Lang, Lang,
Yeah, I
and
love
he
Claire.
has a great, yeah, Claire's awesome. Kenneth has a great job search group in New
Mhm.
Jersey. It's virtual, but he also on his website is KML Consultants, but he has a list of lots of job search clubs all across America.
Got it. I think I seen a clip on of him and Claire where he
Mm.
said something powerful. He said networking works. Oh, networking is better than not working. So
I
I
don't know
was
if that,
like,
yeah, I don't know if that's him.
I
I've heard
forgot who
that too. I'm
said it.
not sure if that's him or not. Yeah,
Yeah. But awesome, awesome, awesome. I got to check that out because I didn't know that you guys would collaborate. Is that every other Fridays
it's
or Wednesdays?
it's only once a month.
Okay.
We just did one yesterday. So
Okay. Okay. So different dates, different days.
yeah, it's usually we have to look at our schedules. We're
Got it. Absolutely.
look,
I will hit
follow
the
me. I'll
notification.
post it when we're ready. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So folks, which is great for the question guy who's in pharmaceutical sales, you absolutely want to follow
Yeah.
Virginia, Kenneth, and Claire in that because that's their area. So um, Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. But share with folks where they can connect with you, consume your content, and look to hire you to help them with their resume and LinkedIn.
Yep. So my company name is Virginia Franco Resumes. I had to think of a title on the fly. My accountant told me, and so I couldn't be very creative. So it's named after me. I am on all the socials under my name as well: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I check them all. So if you need to connect with me, you can find me, and
Awesome.
I'll reach out. I'll be sure to reply.
So, last question. I always ask guests, what's your internal motivator? What gets you going every day to do what you do?
Selfishly, I love to hear people's stories.
Mm,
No two careers are the same. People are amazing, and I love to help them. I love to hear their stories and help them tell their story in a way that gets them to where they want to go next.
awesome, awesome. Miss Virginia Franco, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time, your turnaround time, for joining me in expertise. Any last tip or advice for the folks who may catch the replay?
This is just a writing tip. Run your resume and your LinkedIn by your cell phone. If you have a hard time skimming it quickly while using your thumb to scroll, go back to the drawing board, make your sentences shorter, add space in between your bullets and paragraphs, and you will just that little step will make a huge difference to readability.
Awesome. Awesome. Folks, we're going to leave it there. We will see you next week. Thank you again, Virginia. Follow, connect, share. If you have any questions, post this broadcast, tag Virginia. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer those questions. She's going to go on a short sabbatical. So just give her some time to respond.
For a week, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much. If you can hold on
Thank
one
you.
tight, Virginia, and
Sure.
I'll close this out. Thank you.